Okay, y'all. It's so great to see you. Shalom, shalom. And I hope you're all doing well. So, we're going to talk about the allies that are really lost. The US has lost all of their allies. And there are things going on, y'all, that it is just so many things to talk about. I told y'all I watch the strikes that Iran and Israel do on each other. Last night, Iran did 300 strikes on Israel. Israel defenses are virtually gone. Damn near all of those missiles reached the ground, reached buildings, blew up buildings and everything. Their defense is literally depleted. They can no longer knock all of the missiles out of the air. No, if you haven't seen it on live stream, you really need to look at it on live stream. They literally are in bad shape. You can tell they have destroyed all of the military that they had, the military equipment. Now, I don't know how true this is, y'all, but I'm hearing that from all the missile strikes that hit Israel, they're saying 1,000 plus of their soldiers are gone in Israel. And it's not far fetched to believe it, because if you see how Iran is literally bombarding them with all kinds of missiles, it's not hard to believe that that many of them are gone. And they're also saying their soldiers are walking away because they don't believe this war was necessary. So Israel is having the same problem with their soldiers wanting to fight. Now, they're trying to downplay it. I was listening to the news and they were like, oh, it's only a small percentage. And I think they're lying about that. If 1,000 of them are gone, you can imagine how bad morale must be right now among those soldiers. I don't believe it's a small percentage. I think they're saying that to save face in the media. I think it's far greater than what they're willing to admit. The US is also doing poorly, and a lot of the chatter is they're downplaying the number of soldiers that the US has lost, and I definitely believe that. I definitely believe that the number is way too low to be believable. It is just not believable that 13 or whatever laughable number they're trying to tell us and a war is going on. That is absolutely impossible. It's impossible. And I think another problem is, y'all, see, we are in the 21st century. Warfare is very different now. Warfare is not the same that it used to be during World War II and in the 1940s. It is nothing like that. The technology is now different and a lot more advanced. And you have all kinds of defenses that you didn't have back then. So you can't fight a war the same way you fought it a century ago. It is just far different. And all of the allies are still refusing to help Donald Trump. And I think it's wrong for Donald Trump to start a war and then expect everybody just to jump in. No, I don't blame any of them for saying no, but all of them virtually have said no. Because some people were like, well, the UK, look, the UK said no, y'all. If they didn't say no, you would see the UK sending their troops out there. If you don't see a country sending their troops to the Middle East, they said no. Period. They said no. And they may have said it in a different way, but it's still no. So it's a mess. Oh yeah, Israel is, y'all, that place is a mess. Now, people were saying that they heard quakes, and some people are suspecting that Israel is testing a nuke. Here's the problem with using nukes. The problem is, if Israel use a nuke on Iran to end the war, you got to remember Iran got allies, China and Russia, that got nukes. And China already said they were going to get in the fight. And I was also reading, they have been saying a lot of trains have been going into Iran from China, because, they're all on the east. All of them are over on the east. And they said, oh, China is bringing in a lot of goods. They don't really know everything on the train, but China is definitely bringing things in there to Iran. And the thing is, if they nuke Iran, I don't believe that's going to be the end. I really believe somebody is going to get Israel and possibly the US. But that's what they're saying. They're hearing these quakes and they think that's what it is. They're testing. And see, you're turning to that because you're losing. That's why the US used that atomic bomb on Japan. Because do you know Japan was getting the upper hand at one point in time until the US dropped that bomb down on them, and that ended the war? But prior to that, the Japanese were literally getting the upper hand on the US. So you got to really read about these wars and not go by what these folks tell you. They're only going to tell you whatever they think makes them look good. But when you really look at Pearl Harbor, the US was not winning Pearl Harbor. They weren't winning. And those kamikaze jets that were slamming into boats and everything, they were literally getting the upper hand. That's why they got that hydrogen bomb out and dropped it on them. Okay. And usually, when you got to go extreme like that, or go extreme and use a nuke, you're using it because you're losing. All right. I had to learn a lot about these wars. I was going by what I learned in school or what I was told, and virtually nothing they told us about these wars are true. Virtually nothing, y'all. Virtually nothing is true that they have told us. They tell us the glorified version, which is, in other words, lies. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, yep. They bombed them because the US was losing to them, y'all. And that's how they were able to stop the war and claim victory. So that's what they believe Israel is doing. But I'm just telling you, if they drop a nuke on Iran, somebody is going to drop one down on Israel. And that's what I believe is going to happen. I don't believe it's going to be them dropping it and that's it, because too many of their allies got nukes, including Pakistan. Pakistan got nukes. They're an ally to Iran. So we shall see. So let's listen to some of these videos on the allies. And in all honesty, y'all, I don't believe these allies are ever going to come back. I think they are gone. I was looking at Donald Trump, one of his speeches overseas. Donald Trump talks to these world leaders like they're beneath him. I mean, he really talks nasty when he gets in front of these world leaders. And then, the tariffs and all of, I just think people are just fed up with the US bullying the entire world. And in my opinion, none of these allies are coming back. And you already heard Canada said they going to be doing business with China from now on. They ain't buying nothing from the US. They were the number one country buying US imports. They won't touch nothing now. They won't buy nothing. They now made a huge deal with China, and they're going to be buying directly from China from now on. So I told you the US goods are not selling anymore because no country will buy it. So I think they're gone. And I don't think they're coming back, even if another presidency came into office. I still don't believe they are all going to come back. I think they're going to just leave the US alone, for real. And another thing I wanted to tell y'all, the reason why Donald Trump is desperate to get this war to end is because I found out the oil giants are all over his ass for starting this war. Because listen, if they can't get ships into the Straits of Hormuz, which they can't, Iran picked who can go in there and who can't. So it's only a small amount of boats going in there. So anyway, they're all up Donald Trump's ass because the longer the Straits of Hormuz is closed, they are losing money every single day. The oil giants are losing money. Remember, they got oil over there too. That's owned by the major oil giants. And if they're not getting in and out of there to get that oil, they're not making no money. So the reason why Donald Trump is desperate, I heard a lot of these oil executives are all up Donald Trump's ass for starting this war and for the fact that gas and oil is rising globally. Globally, there is no country in this world that's not impacted by the gas prices. And they are demanding that Donald Trump end this thing. So that's why he's been so desperate to do a ceasefire and end it and stop the war. Oh, it'll be over soon. It'll be, that's why he's doing all of that out in the media, y'all. Those multi-billion-dollar oil companies are up his ass right now. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So we can get started. Please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Yeah, I mean, look, even if let me tell you something. We are the safest people on the planet. We know the Most High got us. Even if they nuke this place, He's going to bring us back. He's going to bring us back because He's not going to let the Gentiles end everything on the earth. He's not going to allow that. He'll either get us off of this earth before it happens, or what he will do is, even if we're all destroyed, he's going to bring us all back. So we really don't have anything to worry about. We're going to be back here no matter what. Okay, y'all, thank you for the ones. And don't forget to pick up your hair products at 12 Tribes on Earth, Etsy, Shopify, or TikTok Shop.
war drags on for and their continued refusal to help America. He says the hard part's already been done, that Iran's basically been decimated, and all that's left to do now is to open the Strait of Hormuz. The president's starting to signal that he may be willing to call time on this conflict, pull his troops out, even if that critical waterway remains closed. And he sort of is suggesting that he's going to leave it up to those countries that really rely on that strait for their oil supplies. That's mostly European nations, but of course, Australia is also badly affected. Donald Trump posting online, build up some delayed courage, go to the strait and just take it. You'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us.
We have to be very cautious with Donald Trump and take sometimes what he says with a fistful of salt. He's obviously very robust with his rhetoric at the moment, and unfortunately his credibility is somewhat in question, having sort of announced that he's pretty much won the conflict when Iran is showing very, very clearly that he hasn't.
Now, the Albanese government said it's not particularly surprised by Donald Trump's remarks, but it says it is not in keeping with the close relationship that America and Australia have enjoyed for decades, once again calling for a de-escalation in hostilities.
We have some big news right now. Donald Trump is having a really rough morning on multiple fronts. He is lashing out on Truth Social as we speak after we learned that CNN has reported that Donald Trump's approval rating currently at -17 is the lowest of any president in American history at this point in their presidency. And so what is he doing? He's lashing out. He's lashing out at countries across the world who he says haven't helped the United States and Iran, telling them, go get your own oil. Go to the Strait of Hormuz and do it yourself because the United States won't be there. Lashing out at a country like France because France allegedly wouldn't let planes headed to Israel loaded up with military supplies fly over French territory, saying that France has been very unhelpful with respect to Iran and the butcher of Iran. He's referring to the Ayatollah who has passed away, who the United States and Israel killed in airstrikes. He's not having a fun morning right now. I will have more updates for you very soon. As always, spread the word and follow along for all the news you need to know about.
The cost of fuel, or gas as they call it here in America, has just gone through $4 a gallon, which for Americans is very high. In fact, it's comparable to what was happening during the pandemic. He's feeling the pressure. This war is not going as well as he's anticipated. He hadn't realized that the Iranians would be able to close off the Strait of Hormuz and keep it closed. I think the Americans thought they might have tried to use that as leverage, but the fact that going into week 5, the Iranians still control that crucial passageway for 20% of the world's oil. And so you can see the frustration and the anger for Donald Trump. He and his Secretary of War, or Defense, but he prefers to be called Secretary of War, Peter Hegseth, has now come out as well and has blasted the allies, particularly the United Kingdom. You'll hear a reference here to the big bad Royal Navy. So for some reason, the United Kingdom and Sir Keir Starmer are very much in the Trump White House's crosshairs.
There are countries around the world who ought to be prepared to step up on this critical waterway as well. It's not just the United States Navy. Last time I checked, there was supposed to be a big bad Royal Navy that could be prepared to do things like that as well. So he's pointing out this is an international waterway that we use less than most, in fact, dramatically less than most. So the world ought pay attention to be prepared to stand up.
In Tehran, I think they are surprised at how they've been able to control that Strait of Hormuz and the chaos they're causing on world energy markets. Look at the petrol prices that Australians are now paying. And I think for the Iranians, this is their major leverage. And I think Donald Trump wants to end this war. But I think the new dynamic here is that Iran now actually may not want to end this war as quickly as the Americans. I think they feel that with Donald Trump under pressure leading up to the midterm elections in November, the longer they can keep this going, the more pressure they're going to put Donald Trump under. So I think that's the new dynamic here.
There's a hidden reality out there the White House won't admit. America's being quietly cut off from the world, and the rest of the world is draining U.S. power in silence. Global powers are not declaring an economic war on the states, but they're doing something deadlier, slower, and much safer for them. They're making U.S. financial dominance less and less relevant over time. No shots fired, no announcements made. So there will likely be no open confrontation with Washington unless something breaks badly. The option most countries have is to bleed U.S. leverage quietly, They do this in three ways. I study geopolitics for fun, and I will explain all three in detail. The first one is the sovereign gold pivot. Central banks around the world have been buying gold at record levels for many years in a row. But this is not a global panic buying. It's a hedge by rotating out of US treasuries and into actual physical gold bars. Major economies are reducing exposure to American financial pressure by doing that. As a result, the dollar's share of global reserves keeps shrinking. This does not crush the system, but it slowly exhausts America's ability to weaponize it. The second thing is alternative financial plumbing. SWIFT still matters, but it is no longer alone. Systems like China's digital yuan and multi-central bank digital currency platforms give countries a way to move money without ever touching US-related banks. Even partial migrations from the system actually matters. Every transaction that goes outside of US control is a disaster, much like leaving the mean kid out of the recess game. So no sanctions are broken, just dollars diluted. The last one is commodity and energy decoupling. Energy trade is no longer married to the dollar. More oil, gas, and raw materials are settled in local currencies between major producers and consumers. You know what I mean? This insulates energy security from US policy swings and weakens long-term demand for dollar debt. This is also the reason why Venezuela and South America are on the news. All of this is happening without coordination. If these things are going to continue, US power will not disappear right now, but it will decrease and become harder and harder to convert into the pressure that the United States have against other people. And that changes the entire geopolitical game. And that's the cause of US acting irrationally against its neighbors.
U.S. allies just say no to Donald Trump. What? U.S. allies just say no to Donald Trump? Yes. France just said no. Spain said no. Italy said no, denied. Switzerland, no. The United Kingdom, no, on a limited defensive basis. Portugal, no, on a limited defensive basis. What? Right now, multiple countries are just saying no to Donald Trump's use of their airspace or their bases within their countries. Donald Trump's go-alone war against Iran. Donald, you probably should have talked to them before you did this. Denying the use of their airspace or their bases for offensive use against Iran. France now has blocked all use of cargo on jets flying through France. Spain, full shutdown. Absolutely no airspace, no bases. Italy has denied the use of the base in Sicily. Switzerland, no, full stop. Not going through Switzerland or using anything in Switzerland. Trump, being the bully that he can be, is threatening them all. We will remember. Donald Trump, this is not diplomacy. This is being a bully. This is not the way you work with your allies or build allies. You like to go it alone, don't you, Donald? Countries like the United Kingdom and Portugal are saying no to offense. They can only use their bases on limited defensive basis. What does this mean? This means the United States is getting isolated. This means logistics are getting harder. This means flights are taking longer. This means refueling is more risky. Politically, it shows the United States doesn't have the backing of its allies. We're alone. Bottom line here, this is just not a conflict, a war with Iran that Donald Trump started. It's a fracture. It shows distance between the United States and its European allies, that we once were a strong team, but Donald Trump has driven us apart. Love to hear from my Democrats, my MAGAs, my crazies, my cuckoos, and the burned out light bulbs. Let me know what you think.
It's not just the Trump administration now. I think many of our allies are looking at all American citizens and saying, what is wrong with you people? How can you allow this to continue? That's the concern I have, because again, for the 4 decades of my military career, I proudly represented the United States. And during some of my recent travels, you can kind of see the damage that this administration has done, not just in terms of the thoughts on what the administration is doing, but what the typical American is thinking about what his or her government is actually executing.
I wish I didn't have bad news for you today, but things are spiraling really badly out of control. We have 3 of the wealthiest Arab nations that are now considering pulling out of the U.S. economy, pulling out investments because of the cost of this war that has been waged by Donald Trump. And when I say that they are the foundation of our economy, that if they pull out their investments, it could crash our economy, that is an understatement. And now we have this letter that was just sent to Donald Trump and published for all of us to read by the leading businessman of the United Arab Emirates. His name is Khalaf Hamad Al Habtour. You're going to need to sit down for this as I read this. His Excellency President Donald Trump, a direct question. Who gave you the authority to drag our region into a war with Iran? And on what basis did you make this dangerous decision? Did you calculate the collateral damage before pulling the trigger? And did you consider that the first to suffer from this escalation will be the countries of the region itself? The peoples of this region have the right to ask as well, was this your decision alone, or did it come as a result of pressures from Netanyahu and his government? You have placed the countries of the Gulf Cooperation Council and the Arab countries at the heart of a danger they did not choose. Thank God we are strong and capable of defending ourselves, and we have armies and defenses that protect our homelands, but the question remains, who gave you permission to turn our region into a battlefield? For before the ink has dried on your Board of Peace initiative that you announced in the name of peace and stability, we find ourselves facing a military escalation that endangers our entire region. So where did those initiatives go? And what is the fate of the commitments made in the name of peace? Most of the funding proposed in your initiatives came from the countries of the regions themselves and from Arab Gulf countries that contributed billions of dollars on the basis of supporting stability and development. And these countries have the right to ask today, where did this money go? And are we funding peace initiatives or funding a war that exposes us to danger? More dangerous than that, your decision does not threaten only the peoples of the region, but also reaches the American people whom you promised peace and prosperity. And here they are today, finding themselves in a war funded from their money and taxes, which costs are ranging, according to Institute of Policy Studies, between $40 to $65 billion for direct military operations and could reach $210 billion, including economic impacts and indirect losses if it lasts 4 to 5 weeks. Not to mention the sacrifice of Americans themselves in a war in which they have neither camel nor she-camel, which I take that phrase to mean being on foot. You have even broken your promises not to get involved in wars and to focus only on America and put it at the top of your priorities, as you ordered foreign military interventions during your second term that included 7 countries: Somalia, Iraq, Yemen, Nigeria, Syria, Iran, and Venezuela, in addition to naval operations in the Caribbean and the Pacific Ocean. You directed more than 658 foreign airstrikes in your first year in office, which equals the total number of strikes in Biden's entire term, for which you directed your arrows of criticism for involving the United States in foreign wars. Your Excellency, the President, these numbers have severely reflected on your approval rating with Americans, which have declined since your inauguration for the second term by about 9% in just 400 days. These numbers say something clear. Even within the United States, there is growing concern about being dragged into a new war and about exposing the lives of Americans, their economy, and their future to unnecessary risks. True leadership is not measured by war decisions, but by wisdom, respect for others, and pushing toward achieving peace. And if these initiatives were launched in the name of peace, then we have the right today to demand full transparency and clear accountability. Well, good luck, because we are not getting any of that from the Trump administration, and we never have. And we've been asking, where is our money? Where is our money going? I'm going to step back and give you a final, bigger picture. We have centrist Democrats bought and paid, and every single Republican bought and paid, that are making money because they own stocks in the military industrial complex, and because their campaigns were significantly funded by the same. And when I tell you we must identify and elect more progressives in all of these upcoming Democratic primaries happening in a state near you, I cannot stress it enough. We have to stop the insanity, and we have to do it by voting better, voting differently, vote progressive.
Breaking news, but also a think piece. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, and Qatar are discussing withdrawing from contracts with the United States and canceling future investment commitments in the U.S. to alleviate some of the economic strain imposed upon them by the Iran war. Now, a little disclaimer, this video is going to be a little bit longer. I put my videos on 1.2 times speed, and you can put it on 1.5 times speed if it is that long. But let's discuss it bit by bit. But first of all, I have a message to all of the people in the Gulf that were doing damage control. Everything is fine. Nothing is wrong. Why are you hating on the UAE? Why are you bitter? Why are you jealous? Why are you upset? Why are you mad? See, y'all making me get out of character. Last year, I was going crazy on TikTok, and this year I said, let me calm it down. But since y'all know how I feel when y'all call me fake news, right? Y'all are saying one thing, but y'all governments are saying another thing. Let's get into it. Okay, first paragraph. The official said 3 of the 4 big Gulf economies, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, and Qatar, had jointly discussed the strains being put on their budget and economies, but they declined to name the states. A number of Gulf countries have begun an internal review to determine whether force majeure clauses can be invoked in current contracts, while also reviewing current and future investment commitments in order to alleviate some of the anticipated economic strain from the current war, the official said, especially if the war and related expenses continue at the same pace. I thought it was all good. I thought it was normal. I thought it was okay. I thought it was safe. All of you Gulf influencers that got online and spread the propaganda that it was all good, anything that may have happened to somebody that want to leave simply for safety and return later, anything that happened to them is on your hands. Meanwhile, I was coming online telling the truth because I get information direct from the source, and y'all are coming in my comments even up till today, even up till I posted this video saying, why am I spreading propaganda? Where's the propaganda? Where's the propaganda when the MBS summoned the Iranian envoy? Where's the propaganda when UAE wants to sit with Iran to discuss the possibilities? Where's the propaganda? But I'm fake news? Okay. I'm AI? Yes, I am AI. Actual intelligence, not artificial intelligence. You understand? They added that the move was a precautionary measure that was the result of the budget strains these countries are facing due to reduced income from energy, due to the slowdown in output or the inability to ship, and from the tourism and aviation sectors, in addition to the increase in defense spending. Now, let me tell y'all something. Y'all know I'm very critical of Gulf governments, but this time I will applaud the Gulf government because this action shows that they care about their people, even if it's just for the economy, even if it's just for the money. At least they have some degree of reverence for the actual people in the Gulf. All right. Even though you see that what I've read so far is economic based. You stopping our y'all basically Gulf countries are telling USA y'all are stopping our cash flows, and we trying to figure out how we can get away from y'all and away from this nonsense. Okay, let's go to the next paragraph. An advisor to a Gulf government said the prospect of an investment review by the wealthy states had caught the White House attention. They manage some of the world's largest and most active sovereign wealth funds, and Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar last year pledged to invest hundreds of billions of dollars in the U.S. after President Trump visited the region. They are also big backers of sporting events around the world and have all been investing heavily domestically to develop their nations and diversify their economies. Question. Today, President Trump said that this war with Iran could last until September. The World Cup is in June. Will the World Cup continue? Will there be a World Cup? This is a serious question. I don't know if we're going to see a World Cup in 2026. Let's continue. Any move that affects investments in the U.S. or other Western states may raise the pressure on Trump to seek a diplomatic strategy to bring the war to an end. The oil-rich Gulf states have been dragged into the continent that the U.S. and Israel launched against Iran, with Tehran facing a ferocious, with Tehran issuing, sorry, y'all, the stop button is in my face, issuing a ferocious response against Washington's regional allies. These something caused shipping traffic to slow to a halt through the Strait of Hormuz, which I got a video about the Strait of Hormuz coming after this one. The crucial waterway through which a fifth of the world's oil and gas passes, with at least 10 tankers being stuck in the Gulf. Y'all just don't like me to be right. Let's be honest. Y'all just don't like me to be right. Like, how come when I come and I just want to give the news honestly? I want to give honest journalism to my people. How come y'all always try to stake me at the cross and throw stones at me? I am sick. All right. Let me be honest in peace, okay? Don't come on my news talking about some fake news. Don't come on my news talking about some, this guy's lying, this guy's doing all of this for clicks and likes. Who do you think you are? The audacity of you. Anyway, I haven't been this excited, y'all, but this was just for the haters, y'all. But anyway, it is 1:47 a.m., March 6, 2026. Follow me for more updates and think pieces.
How close are you to getting that coalition? Well, we have a coalition for them, but they should have been up here a long time ago. And, you know, they're affected. The amazing thing is we don't need the Hormuz Strait. We don't need it. We don't need it at all. We have so much oil. Our country is not affected by this. We have twice the amount of oil as Saudi Arabia or Russia, and soon it'll be 3 times the amount.
Well done to our allies for saying no. We are not going to allow any type of military craft to.
Y'all, Donald Trump is lying. Okay. 20% of the oil comes from the Straits of Hormuz. Donald Trump is trying every day, he's trying to put on airs and act like we are going to be unaffected by this. This is not true. This is not true. All right. It is 20% of your oil that you depended on getting from that region is now cut completely off because they said they are not supplying Israel and the United States. They are completely banned from going into the Straits of Hormuz. And Donald Trump keeps trying to play in front of the American people like we're going to be unaffected by it. That's not true. We are going to be impacted. We weren't going to be affected by it. Why are the damn prices going up all over the damn place? The prices are going through the roof, but we're unaffected by it. See, the problem with us, we're in a real bad situation having a president that will not tell the truth. Because if we were to get attacked and he had that intel, he would probably let us all be sitting ducks. You can't trust a person that will not be frank with you. And Donald Trump has proven he is not going to tell the truth to the U.S. public. He ain't going to tell us the truth at all. And he's showing us that each and every day. So if we are not on here researching and trying to find the pertinent info, we certainly would never get it from this media or this Trump administration. But he's not telling the truth. All right, let's go on.
To stop in our nations and to be refueled or whatever. well done, because this is not their war. This is America's war. And maybe they should have Trump should have thought it out a little more, I don't know, better if he, needed help or any type of aid. But of course not. He did an impulse decision to distract us from the Epstein files. And now this is going to be a long, long battle that MAGA voted for. MAGA won at wars. MAGA won at high prices at the pumps. They voted for this, and we know that they're not going to serve the country because they don't love America. They hate America, but they love Daddy Trump. There is a difference. So good luck, but well done, allies, for standing your ground and saying, no, we are not going to help you out, America. Well done.
Sean, I've been one of the strongest defenders of NATO during my time as a United States Senator because I found great value in it. And it wasn't just about defending Europe. I said it also allowed us to have military bases in Europe that allowed us to project power into different parts of the world when our national security was threatened. If now we have reached a point where the NATO alliance means that we can't use those bases, that in fact, that we can no longer use those bases to defend America's interests, then NATO is a one-way street. Then NATO is simply about us having troops in Europe to defend Europe. But when we need their help, not their help, we're not asking them to conduct airstrikes. When we need them to allow us to use their military bases, their answer is no. Then why are we in NATO? You have to ask that question. Why do we have billions and billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars, over the years, trillions of dollars, and all these American forces stationed in the region? If we can only use, in our time of need, we're not going to be allowed to use those bases. So I think there's no doubt, unfortunately, after this conflict is concluded, we are going to have to re-examine that relationship. We're going to have to re-examine the value of NATO and that alliance for our country. Ultimately, that's a decision for the president to make, and he'll have to make it. We're going to finish the job here. As I said, we're very, very close to achieving our objectives on all of these things that I've outlined. But I do think, unfortunately, we are going to have to re-examine whether or not this alliance that has served this country well for a while is still serving that purpose, or is it now become a one-way street where America is simply in a position to defend Europe, but when we need the help of our allies, they're going to deny us basing rights and they're going to deny us overflight? I think these are very legitimate questions that we need to be asking, and this are going to have to be very carefully examined after this conflict is over.
Yeah, I heard this BS, y'all. The U.S. is going to pull out of NATO. I don't think anybody going to give a shit that the U.S. pulls out of NATO. They're looking at the way you fight and already know you don't have the ability to protect anybody. Can't even protect yourself. So that being said, I think if the U.S. pulled out of NATO, I really, truly don't think the world will care. I really don't. See, Donald Trump is still trying to talk and act like we are some big superpower. No, see, when you get bitch slapped by Iran in front of the whole world and you have nothing really to fight them back with, nobody's going to look at America as a superpower anymore. Yeah, you might be on paper, but in reality, no, nobody's going to treat you like a superpower no more. It's not going to happen. So, y'all, I was just trying to bring this to you because what I'm telling you, you will never see in mainstream news. You will never in a million years see this in mainstream news at all. And I don't think the world is going to miss the U.S. if they stepped away from NATO. That's just my opinion. They're already cutting you off. They're already refusing to buy from the U.S. They're already saying they're not going to have your back out there in the Middle East. So what's one more step of you getting out of NATO? I really don't think they're going to care. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. Thank you so much for being here. I got 2 more great live streams coming up. Now, y'all remember the president of Ghana came to New York City and he went to the slave burial grounds in New York City, and he was protested by FBA and letting him know we don't want Ghana speaking for us when it comes down to reparations. So he was protested in New York City. Well, days later, Ghana got hit with a major flood. It heavily rained there for 7 straight hours, and parts of Ghana is underwater. So some people feel that is the judgment from the Most High. Some folks are saying it's the ancestors for him coming to New York City. And they're saying that those folks at that burial ground are not African. And they, when he stepped foot on soil in New York, he left with a curse. And they were hit with a flood, y'all. So we're going to see and talk about the flood. And at 3:45, Australia got hit with a cyclone. And just before the cyclone hit Australia, the entire atmosphere turned blood red. And I'm going to let you see images of that and video clips that came out of Australia. And they're not lying. It looks blood red for real. So I hope to see you there. But remember 1:45 and 3:45. And don't forget to pick up your hair products at 12 Tribes on Earth. Shalom, family.